All right, so in this drawing, we're going to talk about the 9 lines and do the 9 lines. So I'm going to click on New Drawing. So we're going to name this one 9 lines, hyphen your first initial and your last name. Remember that we want to use the Imperial template. So I'm going down to the Imperial template and create. We'll get this to open up. Now, as we're doing that, when we're talking about 9 lines, we're talking about a way to block everything in using some construction lines to more or less define the outside perimeter of our front view, our top view, and our bottom view. And we're going to do that with our layers. But again, as we come into the drawing, we always want to kind of establish good drawing properties. So I'm going to go up to my settings. And in this case, I'm going to start with my preferences. That's going to be light. Tracking here, I want to go ahead and take your tracking to 90 degrees and turn it off. We don't need the polar tracking. Our object snaps, I want you to uncheck all of your object snaps. And again, the most important thing here is to change our units. We don't want to be in architectural. We want to be in decimal unit. And we want that to be 3-place precision. So our angular format is definitely going to be decimal degrees and 0 precision. Navigation is just standard, so we're done. Now we've set the drawing settings for that. So make sure that you remember and understand the difference between our drawing settings, which we get into up here, versus our snap settings, which we get down here. Now, we've also created the different layers. So when we talk about the layers, so I'm going to go back in, since this doesn't have it on, I'm going to change my properties menu here. So in my object properties, I need to make sure right now this line type is defaulting to continuous. So as I create layers, that means no matter what I draw, they're all going to be a continuous line, which I don't want that. So I'm going to make that by layer here. So in the object properties panel, I'm going to make sure that the color is by layer, the line type is by layer, and my line weight is by layer. Now, for those of you who don't recall, line weight is just the thickness of the line that we show on there. So let's go into my layers menu now. We're going to click on the new layer. This one we're going to name as our construction line layer. So I'm going to name that construction line. I'm going to change this to red, and I'll click back on that. Notice now that has made the construction line layer active. Notice it is a continuous line layer and it is a default line weight, which is fine. So let's go ahead now. We'll create the hidden lines. So I'm going to go hidden line. So hidden lines we want to make green. So I'm going to click on here, hit the green, go back to my hidden line and left click on that again to make it active. Now notice right now we've got in this layer property, it's saying hidden line, but the line type is continuous. So I want to click that drop down arrow and come down. We want to make this an actual hidden line. So, all right. And of course, lastly, we also will have our center line. So we're going to use the center line layer. If you remember from that exercise, it is a red. And once I click back on the center line, I can make sure that that is highlighted as center as well. So now I have all of those layers in there. I'm going to activate by going over here. I'm going to activate my construction line layer. And that is now the layer that I'm going to be drawing on. So I'm going to start here with some just a horizontal and vertical line. So I want to turn my O snap off and I want my ortho on. So if you remember about ortho, using ortho, that is just vertical or horizontal line. So I'm going to come in here with my line. And the first point here is 0, 0. I want this line to be right on my x-axis. So notice I've got very long line length. So I'm going to type in, I want this to be a 20-inch line. So I'm going to hit 20 and enter. I don't have to tab over to the angle because it's already locked in at that. Now, notice from that perspective, it looks like nothing was done. So if I keep clicking, but we did draw a line. So if I keep clicking, it's going to go on. So right click and confirm to get out of this, just to double check and make sure we did do and did draw that 20-inch line. I go zoom, enter, A for all, enter, and now notice, yep, there it is. There's our 20-inch long. Notice how it's red, just like our construction line, and it's on our x-axis. So now I'm going to go back and now I'm going to do the same thing, but it's going to be a vertical line. In this case, it's going to be 0, 0, same insertion point at our origin. And in this case, I want to go up. So I'm going to take my, if I have my mouse over here, it's going to be a horizontal line. If I move my mouse over this way, then it's going to be a vertical, positive vertical line. And this is going to be 20 inches as well. And again, because I'm using ortho, it's automatically tracking to that 90 degrees. So I just have to enter the dimension and hit enter. Okay. Now it's still kind of going through. So I'm going to just right click confirm. Notice my zoom button was kind of, or my pan and scroll button were kind of goofing up there. So let's zoom all here and we get the back. So you should have what kind of looks like this is a L-shaped line right now. Now, I'm going to go ahead and turn ortho off. I don't need it anymore. I'm going to use a modify tool right now. So I go back into my modify panel. And in this case, I want to use the offset tool. So I'm going to click, left click on the offset. And in this case, we are offsetting the first, we're going to offset both the vertical and the horizontal line. And we're going to do that to represent the distance of that we see as far as our front view. Now, if you recall in the front view, it's going to show us width and height. So my first thing with the vertical lines here is to kind of put in the width. So notice in our command bar, it says offset, select the object to offset. So I'm going to come over here. I'm going to put my cursor right there on that red line. I'm going to left click to select it. And then I can offset it to the right, or I can offset it to the left. So in this case, I'm offsetting it to the right. And the distance of our block, or the width of our block here, is 6 inches. So I'm just going to type in 6 and hit enter. Sorry about the bell. So, all right. So now I place that line. Now I got to allow some space in between views. So I'm still in the offset command. So I'm going to click on that one, move it to the right. In this case, this is our space between views, which we want to be 1 inch. So I'm going to type in 1 and enter. And now I got to set my depth for the side view. So again, I'll click on here, move over to the right. The depth of this block is 1.5. Hit enter, and I've placed all 4 of my vertical lines. So now I'm still in the offset command. So now I'm going to go and do my horizontal lines. So I will click on the one that's on the x-axis, and of course this first line placement, it represents the height of our block. So that's going to be 3. So I'll type in 3 and enter. Okay, now I want to again add those spaces. So I'm going to click on that line and allow for a 1 inch space. There we go. And then now again, it's my depth. And remember, it's depth here because the depth in our side view has to equal the depth in our top view. So we're going to go on up, 1.5, enter. So now I have 8 of the 9 lines. So, and of course, as we look, this will represent the front view. This blocked in section right here is going to be our side, and this blocked in section right up here is going to be our top view, and everything that's going to be in our part is going to fit within that particular rectangular space. But we still need to get our 9th line, but we got to know where that 9th line is coming from. Well, the 9th line actually comes from the upper right-hand corner of the front view. And this is why spacing is so critical, the space between the views. So long as we have equal space between views, then we can use this without any problems. So Now, I'm going to go back and turn on my object snap, and I'll click on the drop down arrow. So I want to select endpoint here. I'll go back again because I also want to be at intersection. That way, when I go to create my line, so here's my line. When I come over here to that top corner of the front view, notice how it gives me that X to lock in at that point. So I'll left click on that, and now I'm just going to move up. Now this is going to be a 5-inch line, so I'm going to type in 5 and hit tab. And I do want to physically key this in right now. So this is going to be 45 degrees, and I'll tell you why you want to do that. That's a good safety check for you. So, all right, I'm still in the line command, so I'm going to right click and confirm to get out of it. Now, zoom in a little bit so you can see. The reason for manually keying and making sure that you put this at 45 degrees is because if you've messed up the placement of any of these lines, it's going to show that. Notice all of these should be the same size, and they should intersect, so you got a perfectly bisected square or these equal triangles on there as you go. So if you don't have that, then that's a clue that tells you you haven't done something right. So now I'm going to use my trim feature, and I want you to notice two things here. So I'm going to go back to my modify. My trim tool is the scissors icon. Looks like the scissors, and I can now go and I can just kind of left click on each of the parts that I want to trim out. So I want you to watch while I click all this so that you can see what it should be. All right. So we're clicking out and trimming all of these lines, so I'm just left with the space for where I'm going to be now. So notice when I use that trim tool and click each line, it really isn't very efficient, and I'm doing a lot of clicks here. So I'm going to undo this to show you a easier way, a more efficient way to do it. So again, using my trim tool, if I come right up here to the corner slightly above this line and I press and hold the left key, I can just kind of move over and move down to trim all those lines out. Then I let up on the key, and notice how that's a much quicker, more efficient, requires less keystrokes, less mouse clicks to get that taken care of. I'm still in the trim command, so I can just hit escape or to check to mark to get out, or I can hit the escape key twice. And I'm going to do a zoom all here again just to bring it in. So, all right. So there we go. We'll center this up just a little bit. And of course, now is a good time to save. So I'll go ahead and I'll click save on this document. And I can exit out. So we are finished with our 9 lines drawing.